Gur mágad os rud é gur thusnig Paul a scoilge ba cordum sa tusnú a scoilge freisin bháilm má bhuichas a gáil de éimar agus don EPA as ostlan cuire leabhart libh an olh. I'm going to be similarly optimistic actually and bring you through a whistle-stop tour of our flight path towards net zero in 2050 and really talk about the component parts of getting there, what's required, and then dwell maybe a little bit on the importance of the next period of time, the next 5 or 6 years from a policy perspective in terms of facilitating that path to net zero. So just to talk about the component parts. New aircraft technology, engine technology, is absolutely critical to achievement of our net zero objectives. Just to give you an example, new engine technology is up to 20% more fuel efficient than the engine it replaces, and up to 50% quieter than the engine it replaces. So in Aer Lingus at the moment, we have 14 new A321neos and XLRs, or by the end of this year we'll have 14 that have been brought into the business over the last number of years, and they deliver that reduction in carbon because of the efficiency of the engines. So refleeting and having the capability of refleeting and replacing older technology aircraft is absolutely critical to achievement of our objectives. With that, operational efficiencies are hugely important. Not to the same scale as SAF, as I'll talk about in a moment, but operational efficiency. So what am I talking about in that regard? So you'll all be familiar with taxiing out to a runway or taxiing from a runway onto a stand. What we operate increasingly is single engine taxi. So literally one of the engines, typically the right-hand engine of the aircraft, isn't operational, is turned off during that period, and it's spooled up prior to takeoff, or it's spooled down immediately after landing. And that involves a significant saving of fuel and therefore carbon emissions. Similarly, things like adjusting cruise speed to optimise the cruise speed to save on fuel and to reduce carbon emissions, and other steps that we take on board. Aer Lingus is the first airline flying into Ireland that's recycling on board and has introduced that across its network in the past number of years. So there's a lot that can be done from a fuel efficiency perspective, but all of that pales into in significance in comparison to sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel is the mechanism by which not just Aer Lingus but the industry will achieve its carbon objectives by 2050. And the challenge with sustainable aviation fuel is that there isn't enough of it. It costs too much, and effectively there's a battle to get it. We have in the European Union a system at the moment based upon Refuel EU, which mandates the use of sustainable aviation fuel at certain levels, increasing levels over the next 15-20 years, and that's to be welcomed. But the balance in terms of policy at a European level isn't what it should be. There's a lot of stick in terms of mandate, this must be done, but there's less in terms of incentivisation to generate the capacity, the supply at a cost that is affordable and deliverable for airlines and for airports. I'll touch upon SAF again in a few minutes when I talk about ETS. But I suppose the thing that I really want to get across is that there's often a focus on taxation, on penalisation, on disincentivisation as a mechanism to achieve targets from an aviation perspective. I'm here to tell you that that will not work. It cannot work. The mechanisms that need to be adopted are multifaceted. So policy initiatives need to be implemented. Airlines need to be able to and capable of investing in new technology aircraft and SAF. And just to give you one example of one thing that could be done at the stroke of a pen, but hasn't been done for 30 years. Many of you may be familiar with Single European Sky, this concept, this policy at a European level to optimise air traffic management across air traffic control centres around the European Union. It's been perhaps the standout failure in terms of aviation from a policy perspective, in that it's never really happened in a truly optimised way. Each air traffic management system is responsible for its own airspace, and we are currently flying routings that were, I suppose, put into place in the 30s and 40s, and are not optimised. So at the stroke of a pen, if there were the political will to do so at a European level, there could be a 10% carbon reduction across aviation in the European Union if there was a willingness to do that. So when you see that problem not being addressed for 30 years, it creates a degree of frustration within the industry with regard to other things that are being imposed on the industry. But if the department, if the Irish government were to focus on anything at a European level, is getting single European sky implemented and air traffic management across the European Union implemented optimally over the next number of years. And, we'd all be saved from French air traffic controls, random strikes, or sheep being brought to the airport for random reasons on a Tuesday morning when we get notice of it on a Monday night. I've mentioned that we're in a crucial period at a policy level, at an EU level. We've got a new Commission. There's certainly, many of you will be familiar with the Draghi report. I expect this morning, if IBEC were here, they may have mentioned the issue of competitiveness and the importance of balancing competitiveness with climate commitments. And when I say, in the context of aviation, when I say the importance of competitiveness is paramount, the reason I say it is the following. Airlines need to have the capability and the resources to invest in carbon reduction. SAF is currently 3 to 5 times more expensive than jet kerosene fuel. Aircraft and engines are very expensive. They are the main drivers of the reduction of carbon, as I mentioned earlier. So competitiveness for the industry is absolutely critical, so those airlines have the capability to make the investments in the future and in carbon reduction. A couple of specifics. I know we're sort of here to talk about ETS, and I haven't really mentioned it yet, but one of the key policy focuses from our perspective is supporting the SAF industry by ring-fencing or redirecting more of the ETS revenues towards it. One of the concerns, ETS is here, and it's a welcome addition from a carbon perspective in aviation. But one of the concerns that aviation has is that the resources, the revenue isn't hypothecated. It can be thrown into the mix with taxation revenue, and from our perspective it should be ring-fenced, and much of it should be directed to support a nascent SAF industry in the European Union. The other thing is simplification of rules and reducing of regulatory burdens. Again, this was referenced very significantly in the Draghi report. We find ourselves reporting on the same data to multiple different European agencies in slightly different ways, resulting in the submissions having to be made multiple times. That's a reality, and it's getting worse. There's a simplification objective that could probably be easily addressed. So what is the mechanism for addressing these policy requirements? The key mechanism that is before us is the Sustainable Transport Investment Plan. The new Commissioner G.T. Costas spoke about this a couple of months ago at a conference I attended, and he was quite positive that this DIP plan effectively would be the mechanism by which the issue of competitiveness and aviation carbon reduction could be effectively balanced. And I hope that's the case. In September of this year, we expect that plan will be outlined, and we've outlined are outlining some specific asks in relation to it. As I've mentioned, SAF allowances are a welcome programme. They apply from 2020 to 2024 to 2030, but they expire just at the moment they're needed when the mandates go through the roof after 2030, including the ESAF mandates. So we're asking for an extension of time and scale of SAF allowances, guaranteeing feedstock for SAF production. Aviation is a sector that's hard to abate. Policy decisions are going to have to be made in relation to sectors that are hard to abate, and effectively prioritising feedstocks for those sectors. Also, ring-fence ETS revenues, which I touched upon, and finally, SAF is SAF, provided it qualifies from a criteria perspective. It shouldn't matter where it comes from. The SAF sector and industry in the United States is far more developed than it is in Europe by virtue of the Inflation Reduction Act brought in by the Biden administration. It's producing good quality SAF. That SAF, when it's imported into Europe, doesn't count for the mandate, and that's simply ridiculous. It should count, provided it is of the right quality. I've gone over time, and I'll finish there. Gur míle maith agaibh.